Daniel, you're quiet this morning, I said, sliding his mug of coffee across the table. He didn't look at me. We need to talk. The words felt heavy. My hands froze on the counter. "'Kay, talk." He stared at his coffee. "I'm leaving." I laughed because it had to be a joke. Leaving. "What do you mean?" "I met someone else." His tone was flat, like he was telling me we were out of milk. I blinked. "Someone else?" "Clara?" he said, finally meeting my eyes. I felt my throat close. "Clara, my best friend Clara. She understands me." I gripped the counter harder. "Understands you." "You've known her for what, 2 months?" "3, he corrected. "And she's not judgmental. She doesn't nag." I stepped forward. "Nag? Been working 2 jobs to help you pay rent." You smother me, Emily." My voice cracked. "I smother you." He sighed. "Done pretending we're good for each other." I laughed again, but it came out sharp. "Good for each other. We were planning a wedding. I can't do it." Swallowed hard, feeling my heart pound in my ears. "Daniel, I'm pregnant." His eyebrows shot up. "You're what?" 3 months, I whispered. He leaned back in his chair, smirking. "You expect me to believe that? It's true." "I found out 2 weeks ago." He shrugged. "Not my problem." My stomach twisted. "It's not your. Daniel, it's your child." He took a slow sip of coffee.
It could be anyone's.
The slap of his words was worse than any physical blow. "How can you say that?" "Because I don't want it. Or you." I stared at him, every breath scraping my chest. "You don't mean that?" "I do." The room felt smaller. My kitchen, with its peeling paint and cheap tables, suddenly felt like a stranger's house. And Clara, she knows. Knows, and she's fine with this. She's fine with me being happy. I laughed, bitter this time. "Happy? You think betrayal is happiness? You'll understand someday." "No, Daniel, I'll never understand." He stood, pushing his chair back. "Look, I'm not here to fight. I'm here to tell you I'm moving out today." My voice rose. "Today, you're just walking out?" "Yes." I stared at the chipped mug in front of him. "What about the rent? The bills?" "Not my problem." I took a step toward him. "So you're just what? Leaving me pregnant and broke?" "Emily, you're strong. You'll figure it out." I shook my head. "This isn't strength. This is abandonment." He grabbed his jacket from the chair. "You'll be fine." "Fine," I choked out. "You're destroying my life." He looked at me for the first time with something like pity. "You'll thank me one day." I bit down on the scream in my throat. "Get out." He hesitated for a second, then walked to the door. "Daniel," my voice cracked. "One day you'll regret this." He paused, hand on the doorknob. "I doubt it." The door clicked shut behind him. I stood in silence, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. My hands shook as I reached for the mug he'd left behind. His coffee was still steaming. I dumped it in the sink. The smell made me sick. My knees gave out, and I sat on the cold kitchen floor, wrapping my arms around myself in my mind. His voice replayed over and over. "Not my problem." I pressed a hand against my stomach. "It's okay, baby," I whispered. "I'm not leaving you." The quiet of the apartment felt heavier than ever. I could still hear his footsteps in the hallway. Fading away, I crawled to the table and saw the crumpled grocery list I'd written last night: milk, bread, prenatal, vitamins. Useless now. I wanted to call someone, anyone. But my phone sat face down on the counter, and I knew no one would answer. Clara wouldn't. My parents wouldn't. I dragged myself up, leaning against the counter for balance. My reflection in the kitchen window looked like a stranger, pale skin, swollen eyes, lips trembling. I tried to breathe, but each breath caught in my chest. The clock ticked past 9. The coffee pot was still half full, but the thought of drinking it turned my stomach. I thought about running after him, begging, but my pride, what was left of it, kept me rooted. Instead, I opened the fridge, almost empty. A jar of pickles, a half carton of eggs, and a bottle of ketchup. I laughed without humor. "We were going to have brunch today," I told the empty room. The baby moved door. Maybe I imagined it. I pressed my palm harder to my stomach. You and me, I whispered again. That's it. The walls felt closer now. I wanted to scream, to smash every plate in the cupboard, tear down the photos on the fridge. But I just stood there, staring at the door. The sound of it closing was still in my ears, soft, final. Like the end of a song I didn't know I'd been singing. And just like that, my world wasn't mine anymore. 2 days, Daniel said, tossing my clothes into a box. I stood in the doorway. You can't just throw me out. I can. I am. I'm carrying your child. He didn't even pause. Not my problem. Daniel, please stop. He shoved the box into my arms. I've moved on. You should too. I clutched the box. Where am I supposed to go? He shrugged. Where that isn't here. Daniel, he closed the door in my face. I carried my life in 2 boxes. Down the stairwell, the rain hit my hair, soaking through my sweater before I reached the street. My phone stayed in my pocket. Useless. By the time I found the room above the bar, I was shaking. The landlord looked me over. It's cash only, he said. I can pay a month, I replied. Then you can stay a month. The room smelled like beer and cigarettes. The walls were stained yellow. I set my boxers down at night. The music from the bar pounded through the floor. I lay on the bed, my hand on my belly. We're okay, I whispered to the baby. I won't give up. My phone buzzed once. A text from Clara. Hope you're not mad. It's better this way. I stared at it until the screen went black dot the next day. I called my sister. Can I stay with you for a while? I asked. She hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea, Em. It's complicated. It's family, I said, my voice breaking. I'm sorry I can't. I hung up before she could say more. By the 3rd night, the only voices I heard were from the bar downstairs. Went down to buy a soda just to feel less alone. Rough night? The bartender asked. Something like that? He nodded toward the TV behind him. That your ex. I turned. On the screen, Daniel and Clara smiled for a photo, holding hands at some rooftop party. My chest tightened. Yeah, that's him. The bartender whistled. Guess he's moved on fast. I bit my lip. Guess so. When I got back to my room, I opened my phone. Daniel's social media was full of her Clara in his coat, Clara laughing in his car, Clara kissing his cheek. The captions made me sick. Found my forever. Happiest I've ever been. I whispered to the empty room. You're disgusting. The baby shifted inside me. It's okay, I told her. We don't need him. But my chest ached like someone had pressed a weight onto it. I wanted to scream to reply to every photo with the truth, but I didn single quotes T dot instead. I called my mother. Hi, Mom. I need somewhere to stay. A pause. Emily, I told you not to depend on him. I know, but you made your bed, she said. I closed my eyes. So that's a no, Emily. I can't get involved. The line went dead. I stared at my reflection in the cracked mirror. My face was pale, my eyes red. You've got no one, I whispered. The next morning, I pawned my engagement ring for enough cash to buy groceries and pay for another week in the room. The shopkeeper slid the money across the counter. Shame, he said, looking at the ring. It's nice. Not to me, I replied. That night, I heard Clara's laugh in my head over and over. Like she was right outside my door. I sat on the bed and scrolled through Daniel's photos again. He looked happy, too happy. My stomach twisted. Enjoy it while you can, I murmured. A small spark lit in my chest, not enough to warm me, but enough to keep me breathing. The music from the bar swelled. I lay back, my hand over my belly. They think they broke me, I whispered. They have no idea. The rain was coming down in sheets by the time I locked up the bar's side door. My shoes were already soaked, and my sweater clung to my skin. I was halfway across the alley when my foot caught on something. I slipped hard, my knee slamming. Into the pavement. Damn it, you okay? A man's voice came from the shadows. I pushed myself up. I'm fine. You're bleeding, he said, stepping closer. His face was lit by the dim streetlight sharp features, dark hair, plastered to his forehead, and eyes that looked older than he was. It's nothing, I muttered. Doesn't look like nothing. He offered me his hand. I hesitated, then took it. Thanks. You work here? He asked, glancing toward the bar's door. Upstairs, he nodded. I've seen you around. I pulled my sweater tighter. Great. Not in a creepy way, he added quickly. I own the cafe down the block. Ethan. Emily, I said. He looked at my knee again. That's going to swell. Come on, my place is closer than the ER. I don't, just for a minute, he said. You can walk out whenever you want. I followed him under the awning of a small cafe. The windows were fogged and the smell of coffee hit me as soon as he unlocked the door. Sit, he said, pointing to a booth. I don't want to drip water all over. Sit, he repeated, a hint of a smile in his voice. I sat. He disappeared into the back and came back with a towel and a small first aid kit. This is unnecessary, I said. Humor me. Kay knelt, dabbing at my knee. So upstairs from the bar. Hey, that's not exactly prime real estate. It's cheap. It's cheap. Comes with noise. I've noticed, I said dryly. He smiled faintly. How long you been there? A few weeks? He wrapped a bandage around my knee. Looking for something better? I shrugged. Better costs money. He leaned back on his heels. Could use help here? Few hours a day, nothing fancy. Counter work, maybe some cleaning. I narrowed my eyes. Why? You look like you could use the work, he said simply. I could, but no one just offers jobs to strangers. I do when I need help. I hesitated. What's the catch? There isn't one. I folded my arms. There's always a catch. He studied me for a moment. You don't trust people. Not anymore. Fair enough, he said. But the offer stands. I looked around the cafe, small, warm, and quiet, with soft yellow lights and mismatched chairs. What's the pay? Enough to make a dent in whatever you're running from? I met his eyes. Swiss says I'm running from anything. And he smiled faintly. Everyone's running from something. I looked away. I'll think about it. Think fast, he said. I'm short-staffed. I pushed myself up from the booth. Thanks for the bandage. He opened the door for me. Don't walk home in the rain next time. I live upstairs from a bar. The rain's the least of my problems. He chuckled. See you around, Emily. The next morning I walked past the cafe on my way to the corner store. Ethan was sweeping the sidewalk. Thought you were thinking about it, he said, without looking up. I am. You're holding coffee from somewhere else. It was cheaper. He tapped the broom against the step. First shift starts tomorrow at 8. I stopped. I didn't say yes. You didn't say no. I stared at him for a moment. You're pushy, persistent, he corrected. I shook my head, but I kept walking. That night, the noise from the bar was worse than usual. I pressed a pillow over my head, but Clara's laugh still echoed in my memory. I got up, made tea, and sat by the window. My bank balance was down to 2 digits. The next morning, I showed up at the cafe. Ethan glanced at the clock. 7:59. Impressive. I didn't say I'd take the job, I muttered. He handed me an apron. Now you did. I tied it on. So what exactly am I doing? Counterwork first? Wipe tables when it's slow. Try not to scare customers. I don't scare people. You glare like you want to. I smirked. Maybe I do. He slid a muffin toward me. Breakfast on the house. I can pay. You can work it off, he said. The morning passed quietly pouring coffee, ringing up orders, wiping counters. It felt strange to be somewhere without shouting or music shaking the floor. Around noon, Ethan brought me a cup of tea. Did good? It's just coffee and cash. Most people can't do it without complaining. I've had worse jobs. He nodded toward the clock. You're done for today. Come back tomorrow if you want. I want? Choice matters, he said. I untied the apron. Thanks. You're welcome, Emily. As I stepped outside, I caught my reflection in the window, tired, but a little less hollow. For the first time in months, I felt the smallest flicker of peace, but I still pulled my sweater tighter over my stomach. I couldn't let anyone see. Asterisk. The bell over the cafe door rang, and I looked up. Clara walked in first, heels clicking, hair perfect. Daniel followed, looking smug in a suit I'd never seen before. I froze for half a second before forcing my voice steady. Welcome, Clara's. Eyes lit up like she'd been waiting for this moment. Oh my God, Emily, still here? I gripped the counter. What can I get you? She leaned closer so her voice carried. Poor little Emily, still alone, still pathetic. Daniel smirked. Be nice, Clara. I am being nice, she said sweetly. A latte, extra foam. Daniel, black coffee? He didn't look at me. I turned away to make their drinks, but my hands shook. The steam wand hissed, covering the sound of my breathing. You're good at this, Clara called out. You should keep this job forever. At least it's safe. I set their drinks on the counter. $5.75. Daniel pulled out a crisp bill and dropped it on the counter like he was tipping a child. I slid the change back. Enjoy your drinks. As they walked to a table, Ethan stepped beside me. You okay? I'm fine, I said too quickly. His gaze flicked toward Daniel, old friend. I forced a laugh. Something like that? Ethan didn't press, but his eyes stayed on their table for a beat too long. Clara's voice carried through the cafe. Daniel's company is growing so fast, he's just amazing. Daniel chuckled. We're doing fine. Oh, more than fine, Clara gushed. You're practically a CEO now. I busied myself wiping the counter, pretending I didn't. Here, Ethan came over again. You want me to take their table? No, I said. They don't matter. He studied my face but walked away. When they finally left, Clara made sure to stop at the counter. See you around, Emily. If you need career advice, you know who to call. I met her eyes. I'll manage. Daniel looked like he wanted to say something, but Clara tugged him toward the door. The bell rang behind them, and I let out the breath I'd been holding. Rough morning. An older woman at the corner table asked as I cleared her cup. You could say that. She leaned in slightly. That man you were serving, Daniel West? I froze. Why? My nephew works in finance. Says West's company lost a big investor. Last month, everyone's whispering about cash flow problems. I shrugged. Doesn't concern me. She smiled knowingly. Still interesting, isn't it? The rest of the day passed in a blur. My hands worked, but my mind kept replaying her words. When I locked up that night, Ethan tossed me a rag. You did good today. I gave a small smile. Thanks. Even with them here, they don't matter, I repeated. He raised an eyebrow. If you say so. As I left, the street was quiet except for the hum of the street lamps. But in my chest, there was a strange, sharp sparks, small but real. The lunch rush was over, and the cafe had gone quiet. I stood at the sink, sleeves rolled up, hands deep in soapy water. That's when I felt it light, almost like a flutter. I froze. Oh my God. Another nudge, stronger this time. I pressed a wet hand to my stomach. That's you, isn't it? The plate in my other hand slipped back into the sink. Tears blurred my vision, but I wasn't sad. For the first time in months, the ache in my chest loosened. Emily. Ethan's voice came from behind me. You okay? I swiped at my face. Fine. You're crying? I said, I'm fine. Hey. Stepped closer. That's a lie. I let out a shaky laugh. A maybe. What happened? I hesitated, staring at the soapy water. She kicked. His brow furrowed. Who? My baby? I said softly. He blinked, then leaned against the counter. You're pregnant. I nodded, waiting for the change, the pity, the judgment. But all he said was, how far along? Almost 5 months. He let out a slow breath. You've been working here this whole time, yes? Carrying plates, hauling boxes, Emily. Needed the job. He ran a hand through his hair. Why didn't you say anything? I didn't want pity. It's not pity, he said firmly. I met his eyes. It's always pity. Not from me. I turned back to the sink. Doesn't matter. I'm doing this on my own. He was quiet for a moment. Where's the father? I laughed without humor. Gone, with my best friend. His jaw tightened. That's awful. That's life. You're stronger than you think. You. No, I snorted. Strong, I'm barely holding it together. That's still strength, he said. I shook my head. Strength is having a plan. I'm just surviving. Surviving is the plan, he replied. I stared at the bubbles swirling. In the sink. I don't want my baby to feel unwanted.
Ever.
Then she won't, he said simply. That night, I lay in my tiny room, the rain tapping against the window. My hand rested on my stomach, waiting another small kick. I smiled in the dark. You and me, I whispered. No matter what. Walls still smelled faintly of beer. The bed springs still squeaked when I moved. But I didn't feel as small tonight. I thought of Ethan's words. You're stronger than you think. Maybe he was wrong. Or maybe he was right and I just didn't believe it yet. I made a silent promise right then. I would survive for her. I didn't care how many jobs I worked or how little sleep I got. She would never know what it felt like to be abandoned. The baby shifted again. And my chest swelled with something I hadn't felt in so long, hope. The bell over the cafe door jingled and I glanced up from wiping the counter. Daniel walked past the window, Clara at his side. My stomach tightened, but I kept my head down. Through the glass, their voices carried. I told you, Clara. It's just a setback, Daniel said, low but tense. A setback. Clara's voice was sharp. You lost your biggest investor. It's temporary. You've been saying that for weeks? Do you even have a plan? I angled my ear toward the door without moving closer. Daniel muttered something I couldn't hear. Clara let out a bitter laugh. You're dragging me down with you. I gripped the rag tighter, my pulse quickening. Don't start, Daniel said. I'm already starting. You promised me a future. This, she waved her hands toward him, isn't it? You think I don't know that? Think you don't care, she shot back. And I'm not going to sit around while you sink. The words hit me like a warm breeze on a cold day. I straightened without realizing it. The bell rang again as they came inside. Clara's eyes locked on me immediately. Oh, look, still. Here, I smiled faintly. Looks that way. Her smirk twitched. Daniel glanced between us but didn't speak. What can I get you? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. 2 coffees. Daniel said. I rang them up and moved to the espresso machine. Behind me, Clara muttered, figures she'd end up here. Daniel didn't respond. I set their cups on the counter. Here you go. Daniel took his without meeting my gaze. Clara snatched hers like it might burn her. Enjoy, I said softly. Clara's eyes narrowed, but she turned and walked out. Daniel lingered a second, his lips parting like he might say something. Then he left. Ethan stepped out from the back room. They were loud. I wasn't listening. I lied. He raised an eyebrow. Sure you weren't. I just happened to hear. What did you happen to hear? That his company lost an investor. Ethan leaned against the counter. And how does that make you feel? I shrugged. Like maybe the world isn't completely unfair. He smiled slightly. You're standing straighter. I am not. You are. I rolled my eyes. Maybe I'm just tired. Or maybe you're starting to see him for what he is. Glanced toward the window. Daniel was outside again, phone pressed to his ear, pacing. Clara stood a few feet away, arms crossed, not even pretending to listen. Maybe, I said quietly. Ethan followed my gaze. Looks like trouble. It's not my trouble anymore. Doesn't mean it's not satisfying to watch. Didn't answer, but the corner of my mouth lifted later. During the afternoon lull, Ethan brought me a glass of water. Work. You? Okay, I told you, I'm fine. You've got that look. What look? The one people get when they've been holding their head under water and finally come up for air. I smirked. That's poetic. Am I wrong? I hesitated. No. When I finished my shift, Daniel was gone. Clara too. But the echo of their arguments stayed with me, each word replaying like a song I didn't mind hearing again. For the first time since he left me, I didn't feel small when I thought of him, okay? I didn't feel powerless. Maybe this was the first crack in the wall he'd built around himself, and maybe, just maybe, it was the first step toward taking back what he stole from me. I had just locked the cafe door when I heard my name, Emily. I froze. Daniel was leaning against the brick wall, hands in his pockets. "What do you want?" I asked. He stepped closer. "We need to talk." "I don't think we do." Made a mistake. I let out a short laugh. "Which one?" His jaw tightened. "Leaving you." "Funny. I thought you were pretty confident about that choice." "I was wrong," he said, voice low, almost rehearsed. "Clara isn't who I thought she was." "That's shocking," I said flatly. He glanced down the street, like he was checking for someone. "You're looking for her, aren't you?" I said, "No, yes, you are." He sighed. "This isn't about her, it's about us." "Is no us, Daniel?" "I'm saying I want to fix things." I stared at him. "You mean you want a safety net now that your perfect little arrangement is falling apart?" "That's not fair." "It's exactly fair." His eyes flicked toward the cafe door. "Ethan's still around." I crossed my arms. "Why do you care?" "I just do." "You don't get to care." He took another step toward me. "Emily, I'm serious. Made a mistake and I'm trying to make it right." "No," I said. "You're trying to make it easy for yourself. Do you think I haven't been miserable?" "I don't care if you have. It's cold. That's reality." He shook his head. "You've changed." "I had to." Silence stretched between us. His eyes darted past me, scanning the street again. "Are you in trouble?" I asked. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." "Drop it." "Why are you really here, Daniel?" "I told you. You told me a line you probably practiced in the mirror. Now tell me the truth." He hesitated, then said, "I thought maybe we could try again for the baby." My stomach turned. "You don't get to use my child as leverage." "It's my child too. You laughed when I told you I was pregnant." That was "Don't finish that sentence." He stepped back, like the weight of my words hit him, but his face stayed guarded. "You'll regret this," he said finally. "Regret what?" "Not letting you waltz back in like nothing happened?" "You think you're strong enough to do this alone?" "I know I am. You're making a mistake." "No," I said quietly. "I'm correcting one." His jaw clenched. "You've got no idea what's coming." "Not scared of you anymore." Something in his expression flickered. "Anger, maybe? Or surprise." "You will be," he muttered. I didn't move. "Go home, Daniel." He stared at me for a beat, then turned and walked away, his pace quick, shoulders tense. I stayed there until he disappeared around the corner, the echo of his words buzzing in my ears. Ethan came out from the back, wiping his hands. "Everything okay out here?" I forced a steady breath. "Fine." That didn't look fine. I told him I'm fine without him. Ethan studied me, and he didn't like it. That's his problem. "Yeah," I said, but my hands were still trembling. Ethan noticed. "You want me to walk you home?" "I'll be okay." "You're shaking." "I'll still be okay." He didn't push, but his eyes followed me as I gathered my bag. On the way back to my apartment, Daniel's voice replayed in my head. "You'll regret this." I wasn't sure if it was a threat or a warning. Either way, I refused to let him see me afraid. I was wiping down a table when the first whispers reached me. "Did you see the pictures?" One woman at the corner booth asked her friend. "No, but Lisa did," the friend said. Said Clara was all over some guy, and not Daniel. I kept my head down, pretending to focus on a stubborn coffee ring. By lunchtime, the whispers turned into conversations loud enough for half the cafe to hear. "It's Daniel's partner, right?" A man at the counter said to another, "Sure." "Looks like it," the other replied. "Guess she's not as loyal as she played." I poured their coffee without a word. Ethan leaned toward me behind the counter. "You okay?" "Why wouldn't I be?" "Because you've been holding that rag in the same spot for 2 minutes." I looked down. My knuckles were white around the cloth. He lowered his voice. You've heard? Everyone's heard. He studied my face and nothing. It's not my business. Emily, I mean it. The next day, the cafe was buzzing before I'd even flipped the sign to open. Clara's socials are gone. A regular announced the second. He walked in, deactivated. Someone asked. Wiped clean. Guess she can't handle the heat? Or the screenshots, another added, laughing dot, I stayed behind the espresso machine, letting their words swirl around me. By mid-morning, Ethan came over. It's everywhere now. Even the business news sites. Not looking, I said, you don't have to. People are bringing it to you. I gave him a thin smile. Karma moves fast, apparently. His eyebrow lifted. You believe in that? Right now? Yeah. Around noon, 2 women I'd never seen before came in, eyes bright with the thrill of gossip. You heard about Daniel? One asked me directly. I've heard a lot of things, I said. His partner's been with Clara for months. She said like it was breaking news. Messy, the other added dot. I handed them menus. Coffee or tea? That night after closing, Ethan and I sat at the counter, the hum of the fridge the only sound. You haven't said how you feel, he said. Does it matter? I leaned back on the stool. Part of me feels satisfied. Like the universe decided to even the score without me lifting a finger. And the other part? Sad. I thought it would feel better, but it doesn't. Not completely. Because you're not the type to feed off someone else's pain. I met his eyes. You think I'm that good? I think you're stronger than revenge. The following morning, Daniel came in. He looked like he hadn't slept. Emily, he said, stopping in front of the counter. I didn't answer. You've seen it. I don't need to. His mouth tightened. She's gone. Looks that way. He shifted on his feet. You're not going to say anything. What do you want me to say, Daniel? I told you so. Something. I've got nothing for you. His eyes searched mine, maybe looking for pity. He didn't find it. After he left, Ethan appeared from the back. He didn't even flinch. I'm tired of flinching. He nodded like he understood by the end of the week. The cafe's customers had moved on to news stories and engagement. A fire at a warehouse. A scandal at the city council. But for me, the noise lingered. I didn't join in. I didn't post. I didn't even save the screenshots customers offered to show me. Because the truth was, I didn't need evidence to know Daniel and Clara's shine had worn off. I'd seen it coming in the way she looked at him, the way he avoided my eyes. Long before the pictures hit the internet, one evening as I was locking up, Ethan said, You're quieter than usual. I've just been thinking. About them, about me, about how much space I've given them in my head. I don't want to anymore. That sounds like peace. Maybe it is. When I got home, I sat on my bed and rested my hand on my belly. They're busy destroying each other, I whispered. We don't have to do anything but keep going. For the first time, I felt like that might actually be enough. The bell over the cafe door jingled, and I looked up, already bracing myself. Daniel, he scanned the room, spotted me, and walked straight to the counter. We need to talk, he said. I'm working. He leaned in. This can't wait. Set down the cup I was holding. What is it? My company's in trouble. I didn't reply. Big trouble, he pressed. The kind that doesn't go away. I'm not your problem solver. Emily, listen, creditors are breathing down my neck. I just need a loan, short term. I almost laughed. A loan. You've got savings. Daniel, I live above a bar. What savings do you think I have? His eyes flickered. I know you've been working. You must have something. It's not for you. You're still bitter, aren't you? I shook my head. Oh, I'm done. He leaned closer. I wouldn't be asking if it wasn't serious. I wouldn't be refusing if I didn't mean it. He straightened, running a hand through his hair. You've changed. Yes. He studied me like I'd become someone he couldn't read. Before you would have helped, no matter what. Before I thought you deserved it. And now I know better. His jaw tightened. You think you're better than me? No, just stronger without you. I'll shadow crossed. His face. You'll regret this. That's what you said last time. This time, I mean it. Ethan appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands. Everything okay here? We're fine, I said. Daniel smirked. Guess you've got your protector now. Leave, Daniel, I said. He held my gaze for a beat too long, then turned and walked out. Ethan waited until the door closed. Want to tell me what that was about? He's broke. Broke enough to come to you, apparently. You said no? Yes. Good. I wiped down the counter again, even though it didn't need it. But when he left his eyes, Ethan frowned. His eyes, there was something there. Not sadness. Not even anger. Something else. Like, what? Like he's already decided on his next move. The rest of my shift passed in a blur of orders and chatter, but every time the bell over the door rang, my stomach tightened. By closing, I still couldn't shake the image Daniel's half-smile. The glint in his eyes like a warning I hadn't figured out yet. Outside, rain slicked the sidewalk. Ethan locked up beside me. You're thinking about him? He said. I'm thinking about what he's thinking about. That's a waste of energy. Maybe, but it feels different this time. Like he's not just walking away. Ethan's tone sharpened. If he comes near you again, I can handle it. Emily, I mean it. I don't need saving. Just need to be ready. Back in my room, I sat on the bed, shoes still on, hand resting on my belly. I'm not afraid. Of him, I whispered. But I was lying a little. The next morning, the cafe felt normal, a gonoder's chatter, the hiss of the espresso machine. But every time the door opened, I checked the face before the shoes hit the mat. Daniel didn't show. By afternoon. A customer mentioned seeing him downtown. He looked bad, the man said. Like he hadn't slept in a week. Must be hard. When your empire starts to crumble, his friend replied. They laughed. I forced a smile. That night, Ethan asked, Want me to walk you home? I'll be fine. You sure? Yes. I wasn't sure. The street to my place was quiet. Just the hum of a streetlight and the sound of my own footsteps. I kept my head up, my pace steady, halfway to the bar. I thought I saw a figure across the street, tall, still watching. I didn't slow down when I reached my building. I didn't look back. Inside, the air smelled faintly of beer and old wood. Upstairs, I locked the door and double-checked the latch. You're not going to scare me. I whispered into the dark, but my hand stayed on my belly until I fell asleep. I woke to my phone buzzing on the nightstand. The screen showed Ethan's name. Emily, you need to come down here now. His voice was tight, urgent. What happened? I sat up, my chest tightening. The cafe has been broken into. I threw on my coat and ran through the cold streets. When I arrived, the front door hung open, its lock splintered. I stepped inside. Oh my God, chairs were overturned, tables shoved aside. The display case was shattered. Ethan stood near the counter, his jaw rigid. Nothing's missing from the register. Then why? He gestured toward the back. My office. I followed him, my stomach churning. His desk was appended, papers scattered everywhere. The filing cabinet had been pried open, folders tossed onto the floor. Someone was looking for something, I whispered. Ethan's eyes met mine. I have a guess who. Daniel. My voice was flat, but my pulse quickened. You tell Meads this looked like the kind of thing he'd do. Yes, I admitted, but that doesn't mean that man's been hanging around here for weeks, Ethan cut in. I've seen the way he looks at you. This isn't random. I leaned against the wall, forcing a breath. Can't. Just accuse him without proof. Ethan crouched, gathering papers. I'm not going to the police with guesses. But I want you to be careful. I'm always careful, I said, though even I didn't believe it. No, he replied, looking up at me. You're stubborn. There's a difference. A laugh escaped me, sharp and humorless. I don't have the luxury of being afraid. Anymore. That's not bravery, Emily, he said quietly. It's desperation. The word stung. I crouched beside him, picking up a stack of receipts. So, what now? I'll replace the door and clean up. You should go home. I'm staying, I said. He shook his head. You've got nothing to prove. Maybe not to you. I started gathering the rest of the scattered folders. For the next hour, we worked in silence, the sound of broken glass crunching under our shoes. My mind kept drifting to Daniel, his warning. The way his eyes had darkened when I'd refused to help him. When the worst of the mess was cleared, I finally asked, "What's in these files that's so important?" "Nothing worth breaking in for," Ethan said. "Employee records, invoices, tax forms." Then maybe he was just trying to scare you. Or you. The words hung between us like a chill. "Why me?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "Because you're not the same woman he left," Ethan said. "And some men can't stand losing control." I swallowed hard. "Then he's already lost." Ethan's gaze softened, but he didn't argue. By the time we locked up with a temporary latch, the sky was lightening to gray. I rubbed my eyes. "You should get some sleep. You too," he said. Then, after a pause, "Emily, if anything like this happens again, we call the cops immediately. No discussion." I nodded, though my mind wasn't on the police. It was on Daniel's face when he realized I wasn't afraid to walk away. That night, sleep didn't come easily. I lay in bed, my hand resting on my belly, feeling the faint rhythm of my baby's movements. The image of the wrecked cafe wooden tea. Leave me. That little place wasn't just a job, it was the first space since everything fell apart where I'd felt safe. And now, even that had been violated. When I finally drifted off, my dreams were sharp and vivid. Daniel stood across from me in a crowded room. He smirked at first, the same way he had outside the cafe that day. But when I met his gaze, there was no fear in me. No shaking hands, no lump in my throat. Just silence. And in that silence, he looked away first. I woke with my heart pounding, not from fear, but from something new. Resolve. Word count. 1,000. The first contraction hit like a sudden knife, folding me in half. "Ethan." I gripped the counter, breath short. His head shot up from the couch. "What's wrong?" "It's time." I gasped. He was already grabbing his keys. Hospital. Now, outside, rain hammered the street. Lightning flashed, followed by the crack of thunder. He opened the passenger door for me, then sprinted around to the driver's side. "You okay?" he asked, pulling out fast. I clenched. My fists. Define okay? On a scale of 1 to 10, 15. "All right, breathing," he said, glancing at me. "In through your nose. Don't you dare tell me to breathe like you're the one doing this." He held up a hand, noted, "You're in charge." Another contraction tore through me, and I gripped the seatbelt. "God, you're okay? You're okay?" he kept saying, his voice steady even as the wipers fought the rain. At the hospital entrance, he was out of the car before it stopped moving. "Help! She's in labor." A nurse rushed over with a wheelchair. "How far apart?" 3 minutes, I managed. They wheeled me down the hall, Ethan's hand on my shoulder. "You're staying?" asked, breathless. "Where else would I be?" he said. Hours blurred into a rhythm of pain and voices, nurses giving instructions. Ethan counting, me cursing at both. "Push," the doctor said firmly. "I am pushing." I yelled. "You've got this," Ethan said beside me. "1. More, I can't." "Yes, you can." "Oh, look at me." I met his eyes, and somehow I found the strength. The cry that followed wasn't mine, it was hers. High, sharp, alive. My chest cracked open, not with pain, but with something heavier. The nurse laid her in my arms, still damp, her face scrunched. "And pink. She's perfect." Ethan whispered. "She's mine," I said, my voice breaking. "She's mine." The storm outside rumbled on, but it felt far away. I counted her fingers, her toes, tracing each tiny hand with my thumb. "You did it?" Ethan said. "No," I said softly. "We did it. But she's all me." He smiled, but there was something fierce in his eyes. "No one's taking her from you." "I know," I said, though in my mind Daniel's shadow flickered. He doesn't get this part of my life. He never will, Ethan said simply. The nurse came back. We need to clean her up. Reluctantly, I let go, my arms aching from the absence. Ethan stayed, holding my hand while they worked. You're shaking, he said. I just held the rest of my life, I whispered. When they placed her back in my arms, wrapped in a blanket, I breathed her in. I don't even know her name. Yet, but she's my whole world. Then choose one, Ethan said. I looked down at her. Lila, Lila, he repeated like he was sealing it. It fits. We sat there in the dim hospital light, the storm outside finally beginning to fade. I felt the exhaustion set in, but I didn't close my eyes. I didn't want to miss a single breath she took. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew this was the first moment in months I wasn't thinking about surviving. I was thinking about protecting. Word count. 1,000. The bell above the cafe door jingled as I stepped inside. Lila tucked in my arms. Morning, Ethan said from behind the counter. She's stealing the spotlight again. She can have it. I smiled. We settled at the corner table. Lila's tiny fingers clung to my shirt. The world felt quiet until Ethan froze mid-wipe of a mug. What is it? I asked. He nodded toward the window. Don't look too fast. Of course I did. Across the street, Daniel stood in the gray drizzle. Hair messy, jacket rumpled, hands shoved deep into his pockets. Ethan's voice was low. How long has he been there? I don't know, I said, my stomach oddly calm. You want me to make him leave? No. I shifted Lila in my arms. He can stand there all day, Ethan frowned. He's staring at you. At us? I corrected. Lila made a small sound, pulling my attention back. I adjusted her blanket. Ethan leaned closer. This doesn't bother you? It used to, I said. Not anymore. His eyes searched mine. You're sure? I'm holding everything that matters, I said, kissing Lila's head. He can't touch this. Outside, Daniel's gaze stayed, locked. The glass between us felt thicker than the wall of years we'd built. Ethan muttered, he looks different. Messy. Lost. I didn't answer. The door opened and a regular named June walked in. She glanced out the window, then at me. Isn't that? Yes, I said simply. She lowered her voice. It's been hanging around a few days, just watching. I sipped my coffee. I know. You're not worried? I shook my head. It's just a man standing in the rain. Ethan set a plate of toast in front of me. Eat something. You've been running on fumes. I tore a piece with one hand, careful not to wake Lila. I'm fine. You're too calm, he said. I'm just done, I replied. Ethan glanced at the window again. He's still there. Still here. I said, meeting his eyes. See the difference? For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Daniel shifted, taking a step toward the street. Ethan straightened. If he comes in, he won't, I said, though I kept my gaze steady. And he didn't. He just stood. Hands fidgeting, shoulders hunched. I almost expected anger to rise in me. It didn't, whispered. You could call the police. For what? Looking. Just be careful, she said before heading to a table. Ethan lowered his voice. What if this is him testing you? It's him realizing I'm not the same girl. I said. Lightning flashed far away, just a pale shimmer behind clouds. Ethan studied me. You're sure you're okay with this? I nodded. I don't feel hate. I don't feel fear. That's the win. Outside, Daniel shifted again, glancing toward traffic. Think back at me. You're not going out there, Ethan said firmly. I wasn't planning to. Good. Lila stirred, opening her eyes just enough to meet mine before drifting back. To sleep. Ethan's gaze softened. She doesn't even know he exists. She never will, I said. That's a promise. A fact. I stood, rocking Lila slightly. Outside, Daniel's face tightened as I moved. You want me to close the blinds? Ethan asked. No. Let him see what he lost. My reflection in the glass overlapped his figure across the street. It struck me how much space there was now between us. Not just physically, but in every way that mattered. Ethan came to stand beside me. You're not shaking, should I be? He smiled faintly. No, it's just new. Daniel took a step back as if my stillness pushed him away. Ethan murmured, looks like he's leaving. We watched him turn, shoulders slumped, disappearing into the gray. I exhaled, feeling nothing but a quiet certainty. That's it, Ethan asked. That's it, I said. He nodded slowly. You've won. I know. I went back to my table. Lila's weight warm against me. The bell jingled again as another customer walked in, bringing a rush of cool air. The smell of coffee. The soft hum of conversation, it was all still here, and Daniel wasn't. I sipped the last of my coffee, not once glancing back at the window. For the first time, the silence inside me wasn't empty. It was peace. Word count, 1,300 when Ethan handed me the keys. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, staring up like they led to another planet. You sure about this? He asked. Positive, I said. It's small. I've been small before, I said. This is different. He grinned. Different good? I nodded. Different mine. The apartment smelled faintly of fresh paint. Light streamed through to wide windows overlooking the street. The hum of the cafe below drifted up, familiar and steady dot. Ethan set a box on the floor. You don't have much stuff. I don't need much. You've got a baby. You'll need more than you think. He smiled. That's what friends like you are for, right? He pretended to look wounded. Just friends. I met his eyes. The best kind. He didn't argue. Lila stirred in her carrier. A soft little sound that made me forget everything else. Ethan leaned over her. She's growing. Faster than I'm ready for, I said. You'll keep up. I ran a hand along the windowsill. Feels strange. What does? Living somewhere that isn't temporary? He leaned against the counter. Then make it permanent. I laughed. Nothing's permanent. He shrugged. Maybe not. But you can choose what lasts. That night, after Ethan left, I sat on the floor with Lila asleep beside me and listened. To the quiet. No footsteps pacing outside. No phone vibrating with threats. No one to appease. Just stillness. The next morning I came downstairs with Lila in my arms. Look who's early, Ethan said. She likes the smell of coffee, I said. Don't we all? Over the next few weeks, the rhythm settled in. Mornings in the cafe. Afternoons upstairs, evenings with Ethan helping me fix things I didn't know how to fix. One evening, while he replaced a flickering bulb, I asked, have you heard anything? About Daniel. He guessed, double quotes, yes. Not a word. Someone said he left town. I sipped my tea. So that's it? That's it. I waited for the rush of relief. It didn't come, not in a dramatic wave. Anyway, it's just a quiet confirmation that I'd been free for a while now. Ethan glanced at me. You're not disappointed? No, you're sure. Revenge is just another way of keeping him here, I said. It's cut. I'm done with that. He nodded. Good. Weeks passed. Lila's cheeks filled out. Her laugh came easier as she started grabbing at my hair with surprising determination. One afternoon, I sat with her by the window when Ethan walked in carrying a grocery bag. Gifts, he said. What is it? Diapers. Formula. And he pulled out a small stuffed rabbit. This, Lila grabbed it instantly, chewing on its ear. I laughed. She approves. High praise, he said. I tilted my head. Why do you do all this? He shrugged. Because you need it. I didn't ask. You don't have to. I studied him. You never expect anything back, do you? He shook his head. Nope. It was so simple, it almost hurt. That night, after I put Leela down, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back had shadows under her eyes, sure, but her shoulders weren't hunched. Her mouth wasn't tight. I whispered, I don't know you. And then, I like you. The cafe stayed busy as summer rolled in. On especially warm days, we propped the doors open, letting the air carry in the smell of baked bread and espresso. One morning, a customer leaned across the counter. "Hey, you hear about Daniel?" I froze. "No, word is, he lost everything. Moved out west. No one's seen him in months." I just nodded. Ethan caught my eye after the customer left. "You okay?" "Yes." "You're not curious?" "No," I said. "If I never hear his name again, it'll be too soon." Later, while wiping down tables, Ethan said, "It's over, I know you believe that, I live that." He smiled. Good answer. In the evenings, I'd sit by the window upstairs, watching the streetlights blink on. Sometimes I'd hear laughter from below or the clink of mugs. And I'd feel a wave of something I hadn't felt in years: belonging. One Friday night, Ethan knocked. "Pizza," he announced. "Come in." We sat cross-legged on the floor while Lila gnawed on a crust. "She's going to be trouble," Ethan said. "She already is. She's got your eyes." I smirked. "Poor kid. Lucky kid," he said quietly. I swallowed. "You're too nice. Not possible." The rain started outside, soft at first, then heavy. "Remember the storm the night she was born?" I asked. He chuckled. "I remember you yelling at me to drive faster. You were too calm. Someone had to be." I looked at him. "Thank you. For what?" "For staying." He met my gaze. "I'm not going anywhere." Something in me eased at that. Weeks turned into months. Lila's first real giggle came in the middle of the cafe, making every customer turn to smile. She was growing, and so was I. One slow afternoon, Ethan asked, "If you could go back, change anything, would you?" "No, not even the bad parts. They made me this." I said. "And what's this?" "Free." He studied me. "You don't even flinch saying that anymore?" "'Cause it's true." Later, as I washed dishes, I caught my reflection again, this time in the cafe's window. My hair was pulled back, my sleeves rolled, my face flushed from work. And I thought, this is mine. At night, I'd tuck Lila in, then sit by the window with a blanket and watch the city lights blur. No one was standing across the street. No one was waiting in the shadows. It's just life moving forward. One evening, Ethan leaned in the doorway. "You look content." "I am." "That's dangerous," he teased. "I'll risk it." He crossed the room. "You've built something here?" I corrected. He shook his head. "This is all you." I thought about that long after. He left. The next morning, as I carried Lila downstairs, she reached for Ethan, giggling. "You're her favorite," I told him. "Not possible," he said. "I've seen how she looks at you." We opened the doors to let the sunlight in. The day smelled like coffee and warm bread, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop.